Yeah. So the reason why edible portions at the top of the pyramid or the triangle is because that's the part that's left over after you have purchased the as purchased is the whole so think about the brisket that comes in. That whole brisket comes in and then we trim it, we smoke it, it shrinks, it loses water. So there's a part of it that's left over based on the whole amount. So part divided by the whole.
Okay, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Absolutely. So that's something else to think about. Like whenever you see a percentage question, you always think, what is the part divided by the whole? Okay. Now, not to confuse you, but the part is not always smaller than the whole. So sometimes you can have over 100%, meaning like in a budget situation, right? If I budget for 10,000 and I actually brought in 12,000, well, I have to do 12,000 divided by 10,000, and that will actually show me over 100%. Okay, so it's not as simple as always just the smaller number goes on top, but you're looking at what you're trying to evaluate. Okay, good questions. I see some chat. Um, Lorraine, good comment about the salt, the chicken stock. Last week I made a pasta sauce and I think I oversalted my pasta water. Um, and then I used chicken stock, like chicken base. And then I had olives in it and artichokes. Um, and then I didn't drain my pasta. I just dumped everything into the pot with all my vegetables and everything to make the thicken the sauce. And yeah, it was super salty. I'm not sure, Miss Ayel, if that's the kind of story you wanted recorded, but you get it all. Any other questions?
So, and not to go through the entire recipe on this one, but
Yeah.
like if you take the garlic cloves, because on the notes it says 1 clove of garlic is 0.1 ounce.
Right.
So are you just multiplying that point because that's one recipe unit cost 0.1 times 11, or do you need to like actually take that into account the 450 for a pound of garlic?
Yeah, so let's look at this one real quick. So I'm not going to use the actual recipe amount, but I'll do another example, okay? So as purchased to recipe, this is a formula, this is a diagram that is really helpful for you to, if you're going to send me your work, it's for me to check if you're having problems finding the correct answer. This is the best format to send me your work in, the AP to recipe. And then you can just take a picture of it and upload that picture to an email. Okay. And so we know that garlic is
50.
450 per pound. Okay. So we know garlic is 450 per pound. And let's say we need 22 cloves of garlic. A lot of garlic, but all right. So if I need 22 cloves of garlic and I look at my notes, and my notes say that 1 clove equal to 0.1 ounce. Okay. Now, if I just look at this, cloves to pounds, that's kind of a weird conversion. I don't know how to do that, right? And so if I multiply by 0.1, okay, use my calculator because I think I know the answer, but I just don't want to mess it up. That's what I thought. I have 2.2 ounces of garlic. Okay, those cloves, if one of them is zero point 0.1 of an ounce and I need 22 of them, then my conversion is 2.2 ounces. Okay. And now if I look pounds and ounces, that's an easy conversion for me to do. So how many ounces are in 1 pound? 16, good. So 450 divided by 16 ounces, that is going to equal 0.28125. Okay. Now, this is money, right? Because this is the cost per ounce. And so if it's money, we're going to do what?
last two and then round.
What's that?
It's the first two numbers and then you round that third one if it's higher. Right?
So close. Yes, we're gonna round the second number, okay? Because we're talking about dollars and cents. So dollars, and on the right side of the decimal is the pennies, right? And so if there is a number, even if it's a zero, or if it's like in this case it's a one, we're gonna look at that second number and round it up to 29 cents per ounce. Okay? So for the purpose of this project, anytime we get to that cost of one recipe unit, we want to be at that penny. Okay. And so now because we're at 29 cents per ounce times 2.2 ounces, it gives me 0.638, and I'm going to round that up to 64 cents. So my final answer is 64 cents for those 22 cloves of garlic. So now you can take that, you can apply it to the recipe, okay? You can also, you're gonna use this concept in the zucchini with the red onion, because the red onion, I also give you the equivalence of what one red onion weighs. And then there's also a recipe that uses bacon slices. Okay, and so that's going to be the same concept as well. That each bacon slice weighs a certain amount, and you need a quantity of bacon slices.
Quick question. For the 0.64, would that be the what is it called? The ingredient cost for the recipe, like not for our recipe, but for that one individually?
Yes, good. Yeah, absolutely. So great question. So let's take a look at how this right here would be translated to our RSTO worksheet. Okay, let me take a picture so I can remember what these numbers are. Okay. So for our RSTO worksheet, okay, so we have garlic cloves. We purchase it for $4.50 for 1 pound. Okay. The amount needed was just 22 cloves. Okay. And so that's how I would set it up to begin with. And then I would know that those 22 cloves is equal to 2.2 ounces. Okay. Now I recommend we need the 2.2 ounces for the costing out process. Okay. But if you're actually going to make the recipe, it's important to keep those 22 cloves. Otherwise, somebody who gets your recipe, they're going to take time weighing out 2.2 ounces, when in reality, you just want 22 cloves of garlic. Okay. And so, what I would recommend is as you are making these conversions from volume to weight, is that you do the original amount, the original recipe amount equals 2.2 ounces or whatever the conversion is. Okay. And then that tells me, okay, ounces. So I need to get my recipe cost down to the cost per ounce. These units let me get my pen going. The units in this column and this column have to match and it has to be the cost of one recipe unit. So that way, if I can at the cost per ounce, I can simply multiply and get my ingredient cost. Okay. And so this is where we would put this $4.50 is actually, what did we say it was? 29 cents per ounce. So now this like my units match, and then I come in and I put my ingredient cost of 64 cents. Okay. So that is how we would put that image of that all that work for AP to recipe. Essentially, this is my AP. Oops. This is my AP. Here's my recipe. Okay. And then this is that one recipe unit cost so that I can multiply directly across. And I get my ingredient cost. Questions, comments, concerns about that? Do any of y'all have touchscreen computers or laptops? Okay. If you do, one thing that I found that was really helpful, and maybe I need to bring this in and I can show you all. In your email, your student email, when you click on the 9 little dots up in the top left corner, you have OneNote. Okay. So OneNote, you can call this RSTO project. What I relate OneNote to, for anybody who is of my age, I don't know if y'all remember back in high school when your teachers had those transparencies on scrolls, right? And they would just scroll with like the overhead projectors. So OneNote is like that transparency scroll. You can just keep going and going and going, right? And so if we add a page here, oh, hold on. Click here or press enter. Okay, so we might call this velouté. There we go. Okay. And so then here we can go to draw and draw with touch, and we can do our AP to recipe. So we can do like garlic cloves. Okay. And then as we are doing all of our math here, and then we get down to the next one, then we can move and then draw with touch again, AP to recipe. We do all of our math right here. Then you go and scroll and then draw with touch again. I like to do different colors so it keeps my math separate. I do all my work here. And then at the very end of your recipe, then you would do the subtotal, Q factor, that 5%, Q factor, total, and then cost per serving. Okay. And so I know that I have all of those answers right there. And then when I'm done, I come over here and add a page. And now I do broccoli soup. And so I can see and do all of my actually on my personal laptop, which is what I use mostly during the pandemic. My personal laptop has menu set 2 and menu set 3 cost out this exact same way. I just don't remember what my login is for my personal OneNote. Otherwise, I'd pull it up and show you. So yeah, so you can, if you have a touch screen, this is really helpful because then you can go to the snipping tool. You can go to the snipping tool right here and say, Miss Uminsky, This is what I'm not understanding. This is where I'm getting my errors. And then when you come back to your area, then you can erase um, you can erase the information um, and then correct your work. So that way you have the correct answers. So just a digital, it's called OneNote. Highly recommend it. Let me open up. Caitlin, for salt for the bread and the weight conversion, should we say it's iodized or kosher? It depends on what it depends on what the recipe says. If the recipe just says salt, then you're gonna assume it's iodized. But if the recipe specifically says something like kosher salt, sea salt, then that's what you would look for. Ashley, what is called Elmo?
No, I was going off the topic we were saying about the projector screen and then the sliding in. I thought it was called Elmo.
Oh, so yeah, so now we have Elmo's, which is this. I can put a piece of paper up on this little thing right here, and I can project it up. But but was it called Elmo back then? I don't know what it was called, but I just remember we had the wet erase and the permanent markers. I just remember my teacher like spray Windex spray, and it's always in math classes. She'd Windex spray it, wipe it, and then scroll some more. I remember one time I went back to visit my teachers because I was that kind of nerd. And there was a girl in the class. She was like, I don't get it because you're not explaining it right." And I felt like standing up and be like, "Ma'am, those are the same questions that I did 6 years ago, and I'm doing just fine." I was like, "You need to put in some effort." But I was like, "Nope, it's not your place." Yes, Lorena, I prefer to use kosher. I don't know, maybe the culinarians and the bakers, you can verify this, but my understanding is kosher salt is a little bit more forgiving than iodized salt. It's like a little bit less, I don't want to say offensive, but pungent, overpowering. And so you can be a little bit more generous with the kosher salt than with the iodized salt. Let me update attendance because some of y'all came in.
Mr. Yuminski, I had sent you an email regarding the rosemary recipe or the bread recipe with my work attached. I don't know if you were able to see it or not.
I do not recall. Do you want to just go over it right now, or do you want me to pull up my email?
Um, we can go over it right now. It was the only part that I was struggling was the dried rosemary and the ground black pepper. I could not get it for the life of me, and I tried like 1,000 times.
Okay, sounds great. Before I do that, let me just double check attendance. Joseph came in, Xavier came in. Did Caitlin Pena come in? No, or Jordan, or Will, or Pilar. Okay, cool. So, you know what I think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna use OneNote. Um, because I think with OneNote, rather than having to switch back and forth with the uh, rather than having to switch back and forth with the whiteboard in Zoom, if I do OneNote, I think I should be able to um, upload all the things we worked on as a document in Canvas. And that way you guys can go back and refer back to it if you want to. Okay, so let's go. Let me change the name of this page to 301.001 project. Okay. So we're gonna go rosemary bread. Okay, so AP to recipe and rosemary. Okay, so talk me through your process for the rosemary.
So for the rosemary, the purchase cost, it's gonna be 55 cents per ounce. So that's what I did, and then we needed 8 tablespoons. So I converted the 8 tablespoons to 0.48 cents. And then I multiplied them, but I could not get the correct answer no matter what, no matter like how many times I put it into Canvas. So yeah, I just waited till class to figure it out.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. So let's double check everything. Caitlin, your question about the bell peppers. I would do, it depends on, I think it's the ones by each, because I think you need an each, like a certain count of bell peppers. So that's what I would do. We'll come back to that one. Hold on to that question. So 8 tablespoons of dried rosemary. Okay, cool. So we got that one right. 8 tablespoons, good. And then let's look at our rosemary. Okay. So this I think is an opportunity. This is a great example. So rosemary right here is 55 cents per ounce, but it is also right here, rosemary whole at 8.77 per 6 ounces. Okay. And so what you want to do is you want to look at our recipe. Our recipe is calling for 8 tablespoons of dried rosemary. So if we look at the ingredients around this rosemary at 55 cents per ounce, all of these are fresh. So think about that's probably from the produce section. Okay. So if we look at the next rosemary, this is where we have all the spices. And so since the recipe is asking for dried rosemary, we're probably going to go with this one of 8.77 per 6 ounces. Okay. And so let's do that down here, 8.77 per 6 ounces. Now, I do want to just double check that your conversion from 8 tablespoons to 0.48 ounces is correct. So let's check on that. So dried rosemary, 8 tablespoons. I'm showing 0.93 ounces. And so let's look at, yeah, so here you had it still at fresh rosemary. So that's where that 0.48 comes in. But because the recipe is asking for dried rosemary, we want to make sure we switch to that. And so that's 0.93 ounces. So let's go back here now. So 8 tablespoons is equal to 0.93 ounces. Okay. So now that we have this information, the 8.77 for 6 ounces and 8 tablespoons equals 0.93. See if you can finish it out from there and then check on the check on the quiz and let us know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, bell peppers, Caitlin, let's talk about those, which we're talking about the grilled zucchini, mushroom, and peppers. Okay, so this is where going from AP to recipe, and we're looking at red bell peppers. Okay, so AP to recipe, red bell peppers. My recipe says I need 3 each. Okay. Bless you. So if my recipe is saying I need 3 each, let's go to Chef Tech inventory. So red bell peppers, if I have 2 options, 220 per pound or 110 each, which one would you go for? 110, that's the easiest one, right? Because it matches our recipe unit of 3 each. Okay, and so in this case, we're gonna go with the 110. And then that way our units already match. And so then with my perspective is go with the path of least resistance, okay? Or go to the path of least conversions, because then you're probably going to make some kind of error when you're converting. And so if there's something that already is priced per each, go for that. And then also, let's double check, because maybe, I don't know if I put it in there or not.
I do.
Nope, it's not. So I did not put it in the semester project notes. I want you to think critically on that one without just giving you the answer. What? Wait, Kaylee, you're talking about the rosemary, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's figure something out. Okay. So 877 divided by 6 ounces. Did you get 15 cents per ounce?
Yes.
Okay. So 15 cents per ounce times 0.93 ounces. Did you get 14 cents total?
Okay, no, I must have done something wrong because I got like a penny off. Okay, that explains.
So let's double check the 14 cents. I'm not 100% sure that that is correct. So this is the bread. Review 0.14. Ooh, that's still getting it wrong. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen so you don't see all the answers. Let's see. Rosemary. It's $1.37. How did we get to $1.37? Let's figure that out. This is where having my other OneNote would be really helpful. Oh, okay. I think I see my. It's not 15 cents per ounce. 877 divided by 6 is $1.47 per ounce.
Well, I got 146, but
Yeah. So remember, we got to round it up to the nearest penny. So so $1.47 is the amount per ounce.
and at times 0.93, right?
Yeah, and then that's gonna be where we're gonna multiply 0.93. which is 136.7. So we're gonna round it to 137. See, even I make mistakes.
Because you're
now.
bringing that down to like 1 ounce, right? Like you're getting the cost for 1 ounce.
Yeah, so 877 for 6 ounces is gonna equal that $1.47 per ounce. That's gonna be that recipe unit cost column. And now we can multiply by the 0.93 ounces, and that gives us $1.37.
On the butter, it says $91.80 for, I guess, 36
Yeah,
1 pound blocks. So
exactly. Okay, so 36/1 pound. Basically, what that means is there's 36 pounds of butter in that box.
okay, now we have to see how many pounds that weighs, right? Or
So if you've got 36 pounds of butter, okay, that just means that you're buying them in 1 pound blocks, like what you would see at the grocery store, right? Although it's not the 4 sticks of butter, it's 1 pound, kind of like what we have here, okay? Rather than buying like a big pound, but you're still buying 36 pounds of butter. All right, any other questions? These are great questions. You know what? I was not sharing my screen that whole time. All right, I'm gonna pause the recording so we don't have like long breaks of just silence. But if we do start talking again, Misael, please feel free to, or anybody else.
And I'm stuck.
All right, broccoli florets.
It's on the broccoli and soup.
Yep. Are y'all just gonna ask individual questions for each ingredient? I'm just kidding. And then eventually I'll cost out the whole recipes for you. Strategically coming in. All right, so broccoli florets. I'm just kidding. So for your broccoli florets, you need 4 ounces of broccoli florets. Okay. Let's check our semester project notes first to see if there's any notes about it. Celery, vellute chicken, white pepper, whipping cream, jumbo. Okay, nope. Cool. So let's go to our 8 Peter recipe. This is broccoli florets. All right. So talk me through your process that you've done so far.
So I went on to the Chef Tech and I found it on under the broccoli florets for 5 out of 10 pounds and 4 ounces. And what was my first one? I have my other notes somewhere. And I want to try figuring out the weight over volume. I have my notes, I just haven't got it prepared yet.
Okay, so what was the as purchase cost for the broccoli florets that you had
5 out of 10 per pound?
for 1 pound?
Yes.
Okay, let me just double check that. $5.10 per pound. Okay, so $5.10 per pound. Okay, and then we need 4 ounces. And you said you went to the volume to weight
Yes.
conversion website.
Yes.
Okay, so that is, I think that probably is one mistake that students make regularly. Because I remember, I think if I told you if it's a dry ingredient, then you go to the website. Okay, that's only if we're converting volume to weight. 4 ounces is already a weight. Okay, so there is no need to go to the website because it's already in a weight. Now, if it said 4 cups of broccoli, then yes, we have to go volume of cups to a weight measurement. But in this case, 4 ounces is already weight. And so we know those conversions. Let me show you all something and let me see if what your thoughts are on this, because I don't think I actually shared this with y'all. But it is something that I have created in the past, but I used it for high school teachers. And I didn't, I don't think I ever, yeah, here we go. I never shared this with my students. Would this roadmap be helpful? Okay, so let me walk you through. Let's use this example of broccoli florets. Okay, so we're going to compare our AP and recipe units. So we start over here. We start here. Okay. So we compare our AP and recipe units. So AP to recipe. And in this case, we had $5.10 per pound. And we need 4 ounces. Okay. So we compare our AP to recipe units. Are they the same? If yes, then we reduce the cost to 1 recipe unit. Okay. If no, then we come over here and we're going to convert to the same units. Okay. So starting the measurement in, is the starting measurement in volume or weight? So we can answer this question. It's in weight, right? And so if it's volume or weight, volume to volume or weight to weight, we're going to use those known conversions. Okay. So this is weight to weight. So I know that there's 16 ounces in a pound. That's a known conversion. Okay. If it's volume to weight, then I'm going to use that conversion website. Okay. And then I follow, get down to the cost of 1 unit. So 16 ounces. Okay. And so then I would get my cost per ounce and then multiply it by the 4 ounces. And then we multiply recipe unit cost by amount needed, and that's our cost of our ingredient. Does this make sense or is this confusing?
No, that makes completely sense now.
Yeah, I like that.
So it kind of gives you a step by step. You can answer your question yes, no, or volume to weight, weight to volume. And then we can use those. Yeah.
And do you have that in Canvas?
I can put it in Canvas, absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely put it in Canvas. It is attached to this volume to weight conversion QR code and then the AP to recipe page. This is what I gave to high school teachers when I taught how to teach recipe costing. So
this is gonna sound kind of dumb, but I'm actually having trouble getting to there from like even with the modules, like I'm getting lost on how to get to everything.
okay. So how to get to everything for the project or just the steps of the project itself, the integrated individual ingredients?
How to get into the project itself.
Okay. So what I recommend is when you come here to the project, when you come to the project module, which is for you, it is the third module. Okay. I moved it to the top so that you don't have to keep scrolling through all of the ones. So it's the third module down. What I recommend, this is what I do whenever I sit down to start working on the project, or like if a student logs in and needs help, I go through right here. New tab. So I right click on each one of these and open into a new tab. So that way I have them easily accessible right here across the top. Okay. You know what? Nope, that's not it. Okay. So that's my first step is just right click and open these 4 tabs. So I have my menu, I have my Chef Tech inventory, I have my conversion website, and I have my semester project notes. Okay. Would it be helpful if I put the worksheet after that? And then that way you'll have these just 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, or 1, 2, let me take this one out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You just have these 4 right here in an order. Just right click and open into a new tab. Okay. So that's what I would do to start with. And then let me add that file that we just went over. Yeah, here. Calling computation for 2024. And so that AP to recipe updated on the second page of that is where you're going to find that flow chart.
Second on.
Yeah, so I just put it in the modules. It's the AP to recipe updated 2024. So that's the flow chart. What if I can rename it? Nope, I can't. All right.
Mr. Uminski?
Give me 1 second, Kaylee. So Caitlin, I'm just gonna address your comment in the chat. So the 877 divided by 6 is the 146. Okay, so you did not round up to 147, and that's okay in this example, right? Because we are only multiplying by 0.93. We're multiplying by less than 1. Okay. And so in all situations, if we look, let me open up. Yes, Kayla, I know that's the math of the rosemary. Let me open up and show you. Let me open up and show you the. Here we go. What it looks like. So as I developed this project, one of the things is I used to put in, like, I wanted you to use dollar signs, I wanted you to use decimals, right? I wanted you to get you into the habit of using those symbols and those units. And so if the answer was $1.37, and I typed in $sign 1.37, okay? And then if you entered $sign space 1.37, Canvas would count it wrong because it's not exactly how I entered it into Canvas. And so students were getting really frustrated because they were getting the right answers, but the Canvas quiz was counting it wrong. And so, one, I know math is hard enough. I don't want you to get extra frustrated. And 2, I don't want you to be frustrated when you got the answer correct. And so what I've done when I created these quizzes is I've given you a margin of error. Okay. So in this case, for the margin of error is 2 pennies. So you could answer anything from $1.35 to $1.39. So margin of error is plus or minus, and then you would still get it counted correctly. Okay. So Caitlin, that's why even though you didn't round up to the $1.37 or the $1.46, that's why you still got it correct because we're only multiplying by 0.93. Now, if you're doing something like you're multiplying by 0.4 or you're multiplying by like 4 pounds of something, the larger the number that you're multiplying by, the larger you're going to be outside that margin of error. Okay. And so that's why it's really important to go ahead and get in that habit, even though I know that the third number is a 1, and technically we're not supposed to round that up for basic math rounding. But because we're talking about money, that 1 after as a third in the third decimal place, that 1 represents a tenth of a penny. Okay. 1/10 of a penny, which means every 10 times we serve this, that's going to add 1 more penny to our cost. So that's why we always round up to the nearest penny because we're going to account for all that extra stuff. So we don't have to worry about that in the future. Because if we just do that and we don't round up, think about it like if you're a baker and you're talking about flour, something that you use every single day, all day, those pennies add up over the course of a year. And so to help us alleviate or not have that wasted cost, we're just always rounding up to that nearest penny. All right, Kaylee, did you have a question?
Yes, for the cheese bread, the black pepper, for the seasonings, are we supposed to use the ones in the recipe that are the ground black peppers?
Let's take a look
Or
at
the
the menu.
peppercorns, sorry.
I think it is. Let's look at the semester project notes. So for the black pepper, we want to use the peppercorns from the Chef Tech inventory. And then on the volume to weight, we want to make sure you're selecting generic and branded when you put in the peppercorns. And then you're going to be looking for this UPC number. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's do that. Let's demonstrate that. So this category, sometimes you want it to be on generic, but there are occasions where you're not going to find it in the generic. So you switch to generic and branded. And then black peppercorns. Oops, it's not found. So let's just do peppercorn. Okay. So black peppercorn, and we're looking for UPC 890201. That's not on there. There it is right there. Peppercorns with an S. So that's where we're going to find that. And so if we look at our menu, oops, bread, we need 8 teaspoons. So those 8 teaspoons freshly ground pepper, they are going to either be 1.13 ounces or 0.07 pounds. And depending on what our as purchase weight is, whatever our as purchase unit, that will determine whether we're going to use the 1.13 ounces or the 0.07 pounds. Because remember, we want to go the path of least conversions. I know some of your teachers are like, take it all the way down to the lowest unit, like the ounce or gram. Okay. This is just another way of doing it, and you can pick which way you want to do it. I like the path of least conversions. Yeah, so in this case, our black peppercorns are 16.75 for 19 ounces. So since my unit is already in ounces, I would probably select the 1.13 ounce. So that way my units match. And so then if we go back to this right here, okay, we go back to this right here. We're going to compare the AP and recipe units. So if they're the same, right, ounces and ounces are already the same. If they're the same, then the answer is yes. Then we come over here and we reduce the AP to the cost of 1 unit. So we're going to take that. Where's my website? We're going to take that 16.75 per 19 ounces and get it down to the cost of 1 ounce. So that's what we're going to do right here. Get down to the cost of 1 ounce. And then because we're at the cost of 1 ounce or 1 unit, we're going to multiply the unit cost by the amount needed. And then we're going to get that cost of the ingredient. Okay, actually, let me take this back because we already did let me do this one more time, sorry, for the peppercorns. Okay, so the peppercorns, we need 8 teaspoons. In this case, what was it, 19
1675
what?
or
Or
1675?
16.75 for 19 ounces. Okay, so we first compare the AP to recipe units. They do not match. The answer is no. So now I'm going to come down here and I have to convert to get the same units. Okay, so is my starting weight right here? Is my starting weight in ounces, sorry, in volume or weight? Right here, a teaspoon is weight. Okay. So if I'm going, sorry, that's volume. Sorry. That's volume. Okay, so teaspoons is volume. So I'm going weight to volume. So I need to get my volume of 8 teaspoons into the weight of how much those teaspoons cost. Okay, so that's volume to weight. So I'm going to use the conversion website. And once I do that conversion website, then I know that it's 1.13 ounces. Is that correct? Yep, 1.13 ounces. Okay. So that one, let me change that color because that's not a very good color. Let's go with the dark blue. So 1.13 ounces. And now my units match. So now that my units match, I convert the AP down to the cost of 1 unit. And then I can multiply across. So that's how we would use this flow chart from start to finish of the black peppercorns. Good questions. We have about 10 minutes left. Yes, go ahead, Jackson.
The salt and pepper for the to taste,
Uh-huh.
it's 1 cent for an ounce, or is that just 1 cent?
It's just 1 cent for the cost.
Oh, for the ingredient cost. Oh, okay.
Yep.
And then I had a question about the butter.
Okay.
So I know I need to do clarified butter, and I know that the yield percentage was 75% of it,
Uh-huh.
and that's 12 ounces of butter needed.
Correct.
So that's 12 ounces of butter. And then you said the purchase amount is 36 lots of 1 pound.
Yeah, so 36 pounds would be your amount purchased.
So I do need to just I need to find how much it is for 1 pound, correct? First, and then convert the pounds to the ounces and then add it that way.
That is one way. You could take the cost divided by 36. That's your cost per pound. Okay. A faster way to do it is how many ounces are in 36 pounds? How would we figure that out?
36 times 16.
Is 576 ounces. So if you divide that cost by 576, you're automatically going to get your cost per ounce.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes when you know those types of, like, let's say in eggs, for example, right? If you need 3 eggs for your recipe, but you buy 15 dozen, then obviously dozen and eggs are not the same unit, but I can do 15 times 12 is 180 eggs. So when I divide by 180, I already have my cost per egg.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent, Kaylee. Congratulations. That's what I like to see. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
For the olive oil in the bread recipe,
Yeah.
um, I use the normal one, not the extra virgin, because it didn't specify that. Should I? Because it counted it as wrong with the just the normal.
Let's see.
Because I use that 18 cents per ounce for the olive oil, and then for the volume, I think I just did the normal one too.
Okay, so let's do olive oil. And talk me through your process, AP to recipe.
Okay, so I put 8 tablespoons. Let me click it. It takes me a minute. Um, uh, Olive oil with the generic category. And then the first food that it suggests is the mayonnaise with the reduced fat, and so I change it to olive oil. It says it's going to get me 3.81 ounces, and so I multiply that by the 0.18 for the 0.18 per ounce from the Chef Tech, and that got me 0.69.
Okay, cool. What was the recipe amount for olive oil?
8 tablespoons,
8 tablespoons.
I
Okay,
believe so. I
cool.
can double check for you right now.
So let's use our flow chart here. Okay.
Okay.
My gosh, y'all, I'm loving this flow chart. I'm glad I developed this in 2024.
Just in
Okay,
time.
so 18 cents per ounce, and we need 8 tablespoons. Okay, so first step, compare the AP recipe units. Are they the same? Ounces and tablespoons? No, they're not the same. Okay, so we're going to convert the starting measurements. Are they volume or weight? Okay, so 18 cents per ounce, that is a volume. And tablespoons, is that a volume or weight?
Volume.
Volume. So if it is volume to volume, then we're going to use those known conversions. Okay. So how many ounces are in a tablespoon?
Half.
The ounces in a tablespoon? Oh, 0.5.
A half an ounce, right? 1 tablespoon is half of a fluid ounce. So if 1 tablespoon is equal to half of a fluid ounce, then 8 tablespoons is equal to 4 ounces. And now our units match. So your and this is a very common error, especially as you're working through these recipes. So oftentimes, just like in basic skills, we drilled into your head that a tablespoon is a half an ounce. Okay, it's a half of a fluid ounce. That's a volume measurement. A cup is 8 ounces of volume, right? So we've drilled that into your head, and now I've drilled into your head that for the project, if you see tablespoons and cups, you have to go to the website. But the reality is you only go to the website if it's a dry ingredient. Because if it's liquid like olive oil, then 1 tablespoon of olive oil is half of a fluid ounce. It's already a volume measurement because we measure that in volume. Okay. So that's a
Okay.
very common error. And so, yeah, so now we would just multiply 18 cents times 4 ounces. And so on yours, it was the conversion website, I think it was like 3 point something. So you were close, but that's just because that's the weight. You're converting volume to weight. But what we really are looking for here is volume because it's a liquid ingredient already.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Of course. And not to screw you up, but the other one is somewhat of a liquid is the honey. And I mentioned that in the semester project notes. We buy honey by the weight. And so that one you will have to go to the volume to weight conversion website because we buy honey by the weight. We don't buy it in volumes. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.